So, today we're going to dive into a topic that, let's be real, a lot of us deal with, but don't always talk about being alone. And we're looking at it through a whole new lens, thanks to the insights from the LPot community. They're all about normalizing these kinds of experiences and helping us see solitude not as something to fear, but as a real source of peace and even joy.
Yeah, let's just start right here. Because this one idea, it's pretty much the key to everything. For so many of us, being alone just feels heavy, like something's missing. But according to the LPod community, that's the exact misunderstanding we're here to clear up.
Okay, so first things first, we gotta understand what we're even dealing with here. What's the story we're usually told about being alone, and how can we start to write a new one for ourselves, a healthier one? And this, right here, lays it all out. On one side, you have the common idea that being alone is a problem. It's a sign you're sad, disconnected, an empty space you need to fill up with other people, fast. But the LPOT community's perspective flips that completely. What if it's not a problem, but an opportunity? Not a lack of connection with others, but a path to connect with yourself? What if it isn't an empty space at all, but a space that is already whole and full? So that brings us to the core idea, right? We're not just talking about, being alone in a room. We're talking about a very specific state of mind, a totally different way to experience your own company. So what exactly do we mean by serenity in solitude? This is really all about a shift that happens inside. Imagine this. You're having a quiet morning all by yourself, and instead of that little pang of loneliness, you just feel calm. That's the moment. It's when you stop needing someone else to tell you you're okay, and you realize that your own peace comes from within. You are enough, right there, by yourself. And what that really boils down to is this. It's about getting off that hamster wheel of always having to do something. It's giving yourself permission to just be. It's about actually listening to what's going on in your head without immediately jumping in to judge it. And it's about treating yourself with care, not because you have to check a box, but just because you're worth it. Okay, so that all sounds really nice in theory, doesn't it? But how do you actually do that? How do you get there? So let's get practical and look at the actual toolkit you can use to start building this kind of peace in your own life. All right, so here is the roadmap, the 5 big steps they lay out. And what's really cool is how it builds from the outside in. See? You start with your physical space, creating a sanctuary. Then you move to your time with a routine. And then you get to the most important part, your inner world, cutting out the digital noise and crucially changing how you talk to yourself. You know what? Let's just pause on that last one for a second, because it is so important. Seriously, take a second. What does that voice in your head actually sound like? When you're alone, is it a friend or is it more of a critic? Because the quality of your time alone really hangs on that answer. And look, if your inner voice tends to be a bit harsh, here are some really powerful things you can say instead. And these aren't just empty words. Saying, I deserve this time to heal and recharge, totally reframes solitude as a gift you're giving yourself, not a punishment. And telling yourself, my joy isn't dependent on anyone else, that is a huge step toward real self-reliance. So what happens when you start creating that peace inside? Well, you start noticing something pretty amazing. Joy doesn't just show up at the big, loud events. A lot of the time, it just kind of whispers to you in the quietest, most ordinary moments. And this is exactly what the LPot community is talking about. It's not about chasing some huge, epic adventure. It's about finding real pleasure in just a simple walk. The absolute luxury of a shower where you're not in a hurry. That deep satisfaction of closing a book you just finished. It's about finding joy right there in your own world. And here's the thing, right? The rest of the world might not even notice these moments. There's no Instagram post for had a really great long shower. And honestly, that's what makes them so powerful. They're just for you. They feed your soul. No audience required. Okay, so what's the long game here? What does all this actually build towards? Because practicing this isn't just about feeling better for a day. It's about building something strong, something lasting, deep inside you. Well, this is where we get to the big payoff, resilience. When you learn to create your own joy from the inside out, it's not something that can be easily taken away from you. It's not borrowed from anyone else. It's yours. It becomes your anchor, the thing that holds you steady when life gets choppy. Honestly, if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. It just perfectly sums up the huge shift in perspective that the LPAC community is all about. Solitude is not an empty space. It's not an absence. It is the full, complete, and powerful presence of you. So that leaves us with one final question for you. if you really start to see being alone not as a space you have to fill, but as a space you get to explore, what do you think you'll find there? What kind of strength, what kind of joy, what kind of peace is just waiting for you in the quiet?